Hey folks, what's up? This is Brian Kuzmar with Commercial Rare Coins and Precious Metals in another, I think, hopefully entertaining and somewhat educational video. And where am I going to go with this? Well, as you can see, I've got some things down here, things scattered all over the desk here. We're going to talk about collectible silver and where it kind of started from, the origins of it. And it's not going to be a long video, and as much stuff as you may see on the desk here, I'm going to show you. I mean, there's probably, 100,000 types more products out there and things that I'm going to miss. But I just want to go over some of the basics here because it is a big field. And first, I'm going to pull this out here, and a lot of you are going to recognize one of these. And most of all, you're going to recognize the name down here. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but it is 1970, the Franklin Mint Incorporated. Now, I'm going to start talking about the Franklin Mint, but first, let me remind most folks out here, it's hard to mingle the two in collectibles and silver and investment. A lot of this collectible stuff is going to bring substantially more than what the silver price is, or the more pricey things are. And that is because the key word is what we're talking about is collectible. And silver bars, for example, like 10-ounce bars, and that's, again, you're probably looking at these and other type bars are really not so collectible. You've got two types of silver bars. You've got the stuff that's just purely bought for investment. There's no collectability to it. It's just bought and sold for a little bit over spot and maybe sold for a little bit under spot. And, it just depends on what the timing is on this stuff. And then you've got your whole series of collectible silver that's been coming out for many, many years. And again, I think, let's see, I believe there is actually a date on that too. It's probably a little hard to see there, but 1970, the Franklin Mint Incorporated. This set, the Space Series, came out in 1970. I didn't even realize that. I thought Franklin Mint was not that old. I thought they were probably started in the 70s, but apparently this set came out in 1970. It's called the Space Series, and Franklin Mint really was the first company to come out there and produce a collectible series of coins that people could order through the mail. Of course, there was no internet at the time. All this stuff, your father, your grandfather, even maybe your great-grandfather bought this stuff through the mail to the Franklin Mint. Franklin Mint did wonderful advertising. Some of you may remember that they got into all kinds of other collectibles later in the stage, but let me tell you the beauty of the Franklin Mint. The Franklin Mint was able to market all different types of series, whether it's the, I've got a car series that I wish I could show you, but it's so huge. All the different collectible cars out there, Jaguars, Ferraris, and you get your Space Series. Franklin Mint was able to take topical things and create coins there. Which was really brilliant because, again, you had a certain segment of the people that loved space-related stuff, so they were going to buy the Space Series. Then you had people that loved political stuff, the first presidents. Franklin Mint did it all, and they did it brilliantly. And they were worth a lot of money at the time. And I'm going to make the Franklin Mint story kind of quick here, but where Franklin Mint failed is Franklin Mint, besides having great marketing abilities to market these type of coins, and again, I only got one set. There is endless amounts of Franklin Mint coins out there and topics and subjects. You can find it online on Google or whatever, or come here and look at my scrap barrel, and we'll get to that in a moment as well. But Franklin Mint made their fatal mistake by, when they originally started marketing this stuff, you had to be a local dealer. You had to, say, for example, your local coin dealer back in 1970, I showed you the date here, wanted to be a Franklin Mint dealer. He had to apply with Franklin Mint, and Franklin Mint would sell directly to the dealer at a steep discount. Maybe, I think, 40%. I could be just making that up, but I remember it was a decent profit margin on Franklin Mint stuff if you were an authorized dealer. So you were an authorized dealer, and it was tough to become an authorized dealer too. They only put in so many. It was, again, brilliant on Franklin Mint's part to create that kind of system. And I'll tell you why. A lot of people are going to say, well, why would it be better for them to do that? Because what happened is that the dealers, so for example, if this coin right here, or this set was, I'm just making this up, if this set was $200, and probably at the time it might have been, but let's just say $1,000 at the time. This set was $1,000 retail, and Franklin Mint would sell it to a dealer for $600 or $700 deal, and the dealer would resell it. But what created, and it's called capitalism, folks, is the dealers that were starting to sell Franklin Mint stuff, instead of going back to Franklin Mint and offering to buy this for $700, some dealers are going out and offering to buy it back from their customers for $500, so they could sell it for $800 or $900. All right, still cheaper than the retail price, but what that created, and some of you will get this, is a two-way market. So the Franklin Mint created this ability to create a two-way. I don't think they anticipated the two-way market when they made this marketing plan out there for everyone, but it was what happened. And again, it was dealers looking for an opportunity to buy the set cheaper than they could from Franklin Mint, and the stuff was wanted. There was a demand for it. So for years, that worked for Franklin Mint up until probably the early 80s, maybe, I think. And then what happened, it might have been the mid 70s. Again, my number's a little fuzzy. I've been around too long. But what Franklin Mint did at one point is they decided to market directly to the public. So they cut out the dealers. But guess what happened, folks? Not many people realize this. The secondary market, when this stuff used to be still a great premium over the price of silver because the dealers were the sole distributors and they were creating a two-way market, what happened when Franklin Mint cut out the dealer is they cut that two-way market off completely. Dealers were no longer willing to make a two-way market on the product, and the rest is history, because after that point, pretty much every one of the series that Franklin Mint made end up becoming scrap. Yes, and even back in the 80s, they were scrapping this stuff because Franklin Mint, dealers had felt betrayed and there was no reason, and Franklin Mint just got greedy and tried to, again, market directly to their customers. So there's the short and skinny. But Franklin Mint, hang on, sorry about that. Franklin Mint wasn't just the only people that were doing it. Very few people realize, my father pointed this out to me some time ago, that the silver mint was, excuse me, let me kind of put that in there for you, that the silver mint was the one of the first silver bars that he remembers being out there, besides the Franklin Mint, and they produce this series right here of different flags. I think you can still get these very reasonable. Not many people know these are early sets, and I tried to find a little information before I came on the video. I suspect, again, early 70s, but let's move along from there. I just wanted to kind of show you this because it's one of the silver mint, again, one of the early innovators, and these aren't even 1 ounce, these are 20 grams. So pure silver at 999 fine, and again, probably one of the early, besides Franklin Mint, one of the early guys out there. Now, what I want to get into right now is what happened after that. Now, all of a sudden, Franklin Mint's out there selling, and again, Franklin Mint sold bars for Christmas. They sold bars for, you name it, all kinds of different things out there. And you know what I didn't bring out here is I didn't bring the tray that had all the different collectible bars. I guess I left that in the back. But here, let me push these up so you can see these a little better, if that's okay. Now all of a sudden, all these different mints started coming out. Let me see if I can find a mint on that. No, I can't. And I can't find the one on that. Silvertown, actually, that's Silvertown. They were probably in the late 80s, 90s maybe before that bar came out. But all these different companies started making these silver bars. That's the Nixon bar, Watergate bar, by the way. I remember that as a kid in the early 70s. You know, all the different collectible type bars. Unfortunately, I don't have the vintage bars here to show you. But what I do have to show you too is a lot of these bars become very collectible as well. People started collecting these type of silver bars. They used to have books in the 70s that people could put their silver bar collections in. They're pretty rare. They're hard to find, the books themselves now, but bars were the thing to collect at the time. And you know, they even got, you know, to the level where they started to enamel these bars. I'm going to put a few of these out here, pardon the subject matter for some of you if you're a little sensitive to these kind of things, but art is, it's beauty, it's art. And you would get, now all of a sudden they were doing everything with these bars. They were enameling these bars. They were, God, there's other things too, gold plating and multicoloring these bars. There was every subject you could imagine. So silver bar collecting was pretty damn popular in the 70s. And but towards the 80s, when the silver market started going up to $50 an ounce, you know, all of a sudden, you know, these were no longer $3, $5, $7, $10. You know what I mean? They were 20, 30, 40, 50. So a lot of stuff probably may have been melted, but the collectability of it went away. And again, a lot of it was probably melted as well. Some of it, that's why you get the rarity of some of these bars, and we're going to get into rarity. Just happens to be that these are a rare type of bar, and forgive me for not remembering the gentleman at the fun show that told me how rare these things are and who the artist is. I think his name is John. My gosh, I forgot at the moment. But anyways, the particular artist that did these, or the company that made these, put out a contract for someone to do the enameling, and there was like several different artists that did the enameling. This happens to be one of the rarest out there, my understanding. And I think this bar series is probably, what, $2,500, $3,500? Forgive me, I don't know the prices on this stuff. I have a person that works for me, Samantha, by the way, and once she becomes not camera shy, I'm going to get her to start maybe doing some videos on bars, because she's really a wealth of information. And she learned it working for me, kind of. She just started enjoying this, so she knows more than I do. And she's not been doing it as long. Again, a wealth of information, but probably 2,500. And she sells all this stuff for me too, and gave me some insight of this. Got to give her some props there. So there's a collectible bar. So where does it go here from the 70s to this type of stuff, and then all of a sudden the stuff is melted in the 80s? Well, there wasn't much collectible after that point. And after the 80s, a lot of, again, that Franklin Mint stuff I showed you, and a lot of this stuff didn't survive. And of course, you know, a lot of those Nixon bars, and let me kind of move this off here, and the other type of collectible bars, and again, bars, there weren't any rounds at the time too, if I can point that out, folks. There weren't many rounds at the time. Most of it was all bars. The collectability was bars at the time. For some reason, nobody was really selling the round form of collectibles. All right, so this transgresses into a collectible field in the 80s that was really 70s and late 70s that was really, really popular because of this type of stuff, into now it's just silver. There's really not many people producing any collectible bars in the early 80s after the silver price went up to 50 bucks, came back down. There wasn't a big profit in it. Many of these guys that had been making this stuff had stopped making it. They were more focused in on making bars, like Engelhard actually at the time. You know, and there's some different example of bars. And we're going to get back to these bars, 10 ounce, 3 ounce, 1 ounce, and 100 ounce here. We're going to get back to it because you're probably figuring, well, why is Brian showing this stuff on the collectible end of it? Well, because, well, hang on a second. Do we really want to move past this? No. You know what? I'm going to stick with this right now. In the 80s, this is all you had. This is pretty much the bars that were coming out. The art bars, even though you had some people like Silvertown, and they're very prevalent, by the way. They were one of the biggies out there. And let me see if I can find some of the other, you know, Liberty Mint and those other guys out there in the early 80s that were doing bars. They were only selling for a little bit over the spot price, almost like, you know, just bullion at the time. There were no great premiums like there was in the glory age of the early 70s with Franklin Mint and this stuff here that I'm showing you. Where you know, even though there's $2.50 worth of $3 worth of silver in this item, you know, guys were paying $15, $20, $25, which seems like a lot of money. You know, it is a lot of money if you think about it. That's the equivalent to a lot of money now. So there was a whole collector scene back then in this stuff that just disappeared when this stuff came about in the 80s, which was bullion, which is bullion related. Remember, the hunts changed everything. A lot of collectible silver ended up in 55-gallon drums, like if you watch my videos from the past, my past video, maybe we can put it up in the corner here somewhere. But my past videos, you'll see that a lot of that stuff was melted because, again, silver was $50 an ounce in 1980, which would equate to, my gosh, $500 an ounce silver now, at least, maybe, I think, in my opinion, maybe more. But again, this is what we got in the 80s. And why do I have it up here as collectibles? Because some of the stuff is truly rare. Engelhard had started to produce silver for the retail market in the 80s. I mean, they were mostly manufacturing at the time and producing bars for industry and stuff like that. But when the 1980s came around, people were just buying silver bars. Engelhard, Johnson Matthey, I guess, but Engelhard saw an opportunity with this, and so they started trying all these different size products. Now, what's interesting about this, folks, is that I want you to pick out which bar is probably worth $2,500 to $3,500, okay, on this tray. And I'll give you 1 second here, and I'm going to point to it right here. Probably the most expensive bar right here is the smallest one. Some of you are going to say, wow, you know, I thought it was going to be the 100 ounce. Or maybe the 1 ounce, Brian's throwing me off. But no, it's the 3 ounce, and some of you guys know that as well. This is probably a $2,500, $3,500 ounce bar, pretty damn rare. And this Engelhard is probably $2,500 to $3,500. And the least expensive here, well, probably in terms of ounces, that's an earlier Engel 1 ounce bar. I don't know what they're worth, but the least expensive is this. Why? Is because even the collectors right now for Engelhard and a lot of these big silver bars, and I just said it, right? Collector, you're saying, Brian, those were bullion. Well, they were bullion. Now it's collectible. This is recent, okay? I was going to go in a chronological order and show you the most recent type of collectibles, this being towards the end of the list, but it plays in with, you know, this whole deal. So this bar right here is the least collectible because of its size. You know, the price per ounce is not going to be that great. A lot of collectors don't want 100-ounce bars. Same reason you'll see a lot of currency collectors don't like $100 bills. You know, because it just increases what they have to pay for the note to begin with. But anyways, I digress on that. So you've got a, pardon, I didn't mean to move those out of your sight. You've got a $3,000 bar there. You probably got a bar that's worth maybe 100, 200 bucks at max over the melt value, maybe, if there's a collector out there for that. And then you've got this bar right here. The interesting thing about this bar, and again, Samantha told me, and she's really good at this early Engelhard stuff, 25 known of these. That's why this thing is 2,500. And the reason probably being is because it was, most of them were melted, probably just thrown in the melting pot. It's also possible that Engelhard really didn't make a lot of them either. And what's the big difference between these three bars as well and this bar is the technology behind it. And this is, again, Engelhard was innovators at the time on selling retail bars. Their object was to keep the production cost as low as possible. They weren't making art bars. But again, they did so many different products, and some of them are really rare now. So what you've got here is you've got a poured bar. Here's another poured bar, again, known as a loaf bar. This was, and I was around when this happened. These were pretty cool. Some other industries went in. This is what they call an extruded bar. It's not a bunch of molten metal poured into a mold. This is extruded. It was, and extruded, as some of you people out there that have worked in the industry know, it was a large piece of metal like this forced through a small hole, and then they would cut it, and then they would stamp it. So it was a different process that these extruded bars were made. And I think there's a couple, Crown Mint and a couple others from that time were doing extruded bars as well. And this would be, folks, the most difficult way to make a bar, a struck bar. So most costly, least costly, and probably an attempt to be least costly and still make a clean looking bar. That's my opinion on this stuff. Where are we going to go here? Because again, I could talk a long time about this. Well, we've got the 80s, and after, you know, the 70s, the collectible bars, the 80s. Really, the collectible bar market didn't really pick up. I mean, we were kind of in, and you're going to say, well, Brian, these aren't collectible bars. These are Chinese pandas. But I got to give the Chinese some credit. This is probably one of the first series that was more bullion related, and particularly in the gold series, that people started collecting. The Chinese were able to market these things because every year they would put, pardon me, I'm going to put that over there. The Chinese were able to market these things because every year they could put out a different design. And pandas are cute and cuddly, and wife and husband could collect pandas. You know what I'm saying? It's something the husband could say, hey, let's collect these. And the wife says, oh, that's so cute, it's a panda. All right, well, maybe I'm overplaying the marketing strategy, but it was really brilliant. But again, what is the big difference between these and what I've shown you so far? All right, I'm going to tell you. It's a sovereign country that made these. This is a sovereign country that is getting into the bullion business. The Chinese were. Now, were they the first? No, they were not the first, all right? But they were the first probably to do the marketing properly next to the Canadians, who had been doing it for years in their numismatic products, marketing way better than the U.S. Mint was. But the big difference between the product I've shown you so far and this product is it's a sovereign product, all right? So, but why I'm bringing this up is because these type of products that like the Chinese were making all of a sudden started a whole different new, not a whole different new industry, it reinvigorated the old bar industry. They're no longer bars, they're round shape, okay? If you notice, it changes, it makes that change during that transition, during that time. They go from being bars to round shape. And again, I got credit the Chinese actually for coming out with the different series, which created stuff like this. I'm going to start getting into the more modern series. You know, there's gold and silver. I don't know who made that, but started getting into why things like this were created here. And let me pull this out here. And again, this is kind of interesting. That's a silver plate, you know, which is not much different. This is probably done in the 80s or something like that. Which is not much different than this stuff that you see on television now and that you see in the new, you know, in magazines. By the way, folks, please don't buy your silver or your collectibles out of magazines or from TV ads. Nothing good will come from it, okay? All right, with that said, that's my public service message for the day. I'm going to move this out of here, but you know what's beautiful thing about this? This is actually looks like an engraving plate. It's made out of silver. It's low mintage. Oddly enough, the collectible industry has not discovered things like this because this, to me, is the real look. And actually, there's an engraving made from a plate, not this plate, but a real plate from this banknote company. And again, I'm pointing this out because this is the 80s, folks. This is when they started to rediscover the beauty of selling silver as a collectible, okay? And some companies were able to do it brilliantly like this, mixing it in with their product. And where do we go from here? I mean, let me, again, here, I'm going to show you stuff like this. You guys are familiar. You've seen this stuff here. Remember, now you've probably seen the 1 pound silver eagles, and actually I don't have, there's a 1 pound silver eagle that you see in the newspapers in your local neighborhood. If you still read a newspaper, or likely you see it in the airplane when you're reading the stupid magazines, or you're on the television, you see that big. So remember folks, public service announcement number 2, don't buy that stuff. It's overpriced. You can usually buy it from other secondary, your local coin shop for much, much cheaper, like you can here. Silver's even higher, and we're probably selling it cheaper than what the poor bastard that bought this stuff paid for it, and that's the shame of this matter. But again, I'm going into the collectible end of this, all this stuff right here. While I'm pointing out things not to buy in public service announcements, let me do another not to buy here to show you my real disdain for this stuff right here. Now, out of the lowest form of collectibles, as far as the silver collectibles, is just some lazy bastard that went and stuck a sticker on one of these and decided to market them for $30 and $40 and $50. Now, I'm sorry, I know some of you think they're kind of cool, but they're stickers, they're not coins. But I'm just kind of talking about the evolution of how all this has happened. And you know what? I need to grab a couple things here. Give me 1 second here. Let me pull this. Let me pull this over here, and give me 1 second. So now we're going to go into, like, and again, I could stretch this video out for a long time, folks, and do a complete history lesson of all the different types of silver. And hey, first, let me get this stuff off. I know, get this garbage off the case. All right, you know my opinion on that stuff. I'm sorry, it is what it is. So let me get into where the collectible silver market is going. We've gone from Franklin Mint. We've gone to companies that kind of was looking at what Franklin Mint was doing and replicated that success to what else can we do? Well, we can enamel it. What else can we do? Well, I didn't even get into strange shapes that they did during the 80s or 70s as well, and even during the 80s. And then we get into where the 80s, where the bar market just disappeared, just vanished. It was gone. And then we get into the part where the market really consisted of bars and people that were just looking to stack, what we call stackers now, but people are just buying silver only for its silver value. Slowly, these guys and all these other companies, now Engelhard not so much as far as, hold on, think about this. Engelhard created their Prospector series. I don't have that. I wish I could show you a copy of that, but Engelhard was looking to outmarket the other people in the silver bar market, and you can't do it just by creating a square blob, ugly, ugly, ugly. So they had to compete with others, and they were all competing with each other. So Engelhard comes out with the Engelhard Prospector, which is a beautiful coin with the Prospector on it. So it was a different thing. They were all looking at ways to not promote the art or promote the rarity of the bars, but promote the beauty of it so people would buy their bar versus another bullion bar. A lot of them didn't realize, like Engelhard, that some of these would become very collectible. But now we're moved into, again, the modern age, and we're moving into where collectibles are going. And we're kind of reinventing. The whole collectible bar market is reinventing itself. And how is that? Well, let me show you. This is kind of interesting. This is from I kind of preface this. This is from a customer, Adam Edinger, I believe, who, Instagram, if you want to find his stuff, he makes this. He originally came into our store years and years ago and bought silver bars, and then finally, not finally, but looked at them and said, I can see some art in this, and I can see some fun that I can have with this. And Adam made these right here, and that's I forget what it is. I'm sorry, 4.5 ounces. He put the weights on the back of them, and he used silver. But this is, again, evolution of this business. Adam is not a mentor. He is not an Engelhard. He is not a Scottsdale Mint. He is not a Johnson Matthey. He's a private individual. So we started to see this whole evolution into private individuals starting to make their own bars, and there's a lot of stuff here. I'm sure I have some around here of guys, and if you just go on YouTube, you can find a lot of these guys here and watch how they do it. But they're taking silver bars that they bought from companies like me, and they're saying, hey, how can I repurpose this and have some fun with it? And I still got silver at the very end, and at some point, some of these bars very well may become very expensive, like the Engelhards, once they develop a collector base. All right. Gosh, too, I did skip one little thing here that I wanted to show you real quick, is how silver bars go wrong. No, not putting stickers on them, all right? and the collectability of, we're not even going there, but here's a company right here, and again, I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up, and I'm going back in history a little bit. This is called the Nor-Fed Silver Round. Now this is probably 2003, so it's later, it's not going back too far, and I hope you can see that. I'm going to put that right there. It's called the Nor-Fed Silver Round. This guy went to prison, I believe. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, all right? But if I'm correct, he had major legal problems. He went to prison for designing this, and you're going to say, well, why did he go to prison for designing it? Why? I'm not even sure if that what I paid for it or whatever. I kind of collect these myself. But why? What happened? Well, I tell you, folks, he made the major boo-boo, big boo-boo that all these companies knew not to make. He put a denomination on it. Look, it's $10 US dollars, and at this time, the Treasury Department frowned on that. They sent the Secret Service to him, and I believe that his stuff was confiscated. These were called illegal. Why? Again, if you notice all these bars and collectibles I'm showing you, except for the Chinese, you know what I'm saying? And when I was showing you all these large, 1 pound silver eagles made by private companies, what they can't do, and I'm going to show you one here, is they can't do this. And you're saying, well, what is that? Well, that's, see right there, 10 pounds. That's a denomination. That's what the sovereign countries can do. That's what private industries should not do. Those guys don't like it. So this guy spent a little time, and you really should do a YouTube search under the Nor-Fed Mint. I think it's the Nor-Fed Mint. And you'll see some interesting stuff. Perhaps maybe I can expand on it at some other point. But let's kind of get back to all these beautiful items made by these private mentors like we got here. And I think that we're moving into a different, again, an evolution of the collectible part of the silver market. Some of this stuff will be highly collectible in the future. Some of it will just get melted. It won't be. And we're going to see who ends up being the big dog. I mean, obviously, we're getting, lots of money for that. We're getting lots of money for that 3-ounce bars and this stuff. So we know that collectible market seems to be holding up pretty well. And some of these collectible markets will be a flash in the pan as well. But at some point in the future, we're going to see private artists like Adam and private artists, and I'm going to get into another piece that's pretty special to me as well. Private artists that are creating this whole new art form of bars and coins. And the evolution of the collectability of this stuff is even going a bit further. And I'm going to show you something here that I think is really cool. And it was sent to me by a friend of mine, or friends of mine, I should say. And I'm going to pull this out here. Arcadia Economics. Recently done an interview with Chris from Arcadia Economics. And I met them a little while ago. I don't know how. I think it was through Rafi Farber somehow, hooked us up. But really cool product. And you're saying, okay, what is this? Not a bar. It's not a coin. All right, what is it? Well, you know what it is? It is another form of the collectibles. Remember how I told you we moved from the bars to the round coins to different star shapes? And now, and again, if we look at Adam's item over here, odd shaped pour, things like that. Well, the spectrum has opened up. Now we've got what I would call kind of sculptures, and that's basically what we're looking at is silver sculptures. The core of it is the silver, but also topical. Now this is wonderful too if you take a look at this, and it actually rotates around here as well. And that's Ben Bernanke throwing out dollar bills, and again, this is from Chris and Yars from Arcadia Economics. They loaned me this right here to show you guys. This is the prototype. I'm handling number 1, folks. Maybe if you want, you can getting a bidding war with the number 1 on this. However, I want to remind you folks, as I said, apples, well, where are my apples? Apples are going to be bullion bars. I can't point to these anymore as bullion bars. Apples going to be like your 100-ounce bars and silver eagles and stuff that sells for. Oranges are going to be the collectible world, all right? Both are tasty fruits, but you have to understand the difference between these two fruits. When you're buying collectibles, you're buying that. You're buying the collectible, the rarity and the beauty and something that you like, and most of the time it's topical. And a lot of these collectibles will survive and become even more expensive in the future. It's we have to determine who and all that kind of thing. But I like where the industry is turning, especially when you look at little Ben here tossing dollar bills out the window. Again, this fits into the theme of Arcadia Economics, if you know those folks. And make sure you check out their videos as well. Again, prototype, and the fact that it articulates. And I'm not quite sure what he's getting for these, but remember, folks, you're not buying a stupid silver bar or a stupid silver eagle. You're buying an art here. And I think what I'm going to do is talk Chris into putting numbers on them, numbering them as well, and maybe talk him into putting this up in bid for, you know, as the #1 prototype. But I don't think he's going to let go. He's got some sentimental attachment. I can't blame him. It's cool. Your first is always your first, right? All right, folks. Well, I think I'm going to do a little helicopter spin here. I don't know if you can see that in the picture, but there you go. I think I'm going to call this video with that. There's so much oh, doggone it. Ouch. Almost shot myself there. Well, I forgot to mention this. And again, I would have mentioned this first before I brought this up, but this is what I was talking about in different shapes and forms. And where is that? Right here, look. Again, well, helicopters and BMG go well together. So there you go. This goes well. These are silver. And again, I was talking about like different forms and what they're doing to attract attention. These are semi-collectible. I don't know if they're collectible now. Look, 50 BMG comes in the box. But you see where the collectible industry is going. I would certainly prefer to put Chris's helicopter, Adam's bar on a little thing on my shelf, and some stuff like that, in a 50 caliber on my shelf, than a bar. But I got to admit, that is pretty cool. So, all right, folks, that's it. This is Brian Kuzmar with Commercial Rare Coins and Precious Metals in beautiful Lauderdale by the Sea. If you're ever looking to buy gold, silver, and platinum, make sure you check us out. I've been doing this for decades and decades. Stop making me counting. And we're in beautiful Lauderdale by the Sea. I wish you could see how nice the weather is today as well. I'd like to thank everybody who helps me make this video. Marcelo, who produces and does the camera work for me on these particular videos, and editing, thank you. We don't edit much, by the way. And that's it. Again, if you're looking to buy gold and silver, check us out. And that's it, folks. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you in my next video. Take care.